it is 12 noon exactly now, so we will get started. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Ken, you can hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so I just have a few things to go over before we get started. So I just want to thank everyone so much for taking the time to attend today's webinar entitled Invasive Phragmites Management in Municipal Drains in the Town of Kingsville. And this is the second webinar of our winter webinar series for 2016. For those who don't know, they are funded by the Invasive Species Center. So really without their funding, these webinars wouldn't be possible. So thank you to the Invasive Species Center. I will be posting registration for the next webinar later today or tomorrow. So a few logistics before we get started. Today's presentation will be approximately half an hour long, with the remainder of the presentation for questions. Everyone except the presenter will be on mute during the entirety of the presentation. So at the end of the presentation, please use the Q&A box, so the question and answer box, to ask any questions you have. We'll only be answering questions from the question and answer box, and try not to use the chat box, so use the Q&A box. For those who aren't aware, if you're having difficulty hearing through your computer, there is a toll-free number, and that should have come up in the registration, but I'll say it again. It's 1-855-797-9485. For those already on the phone, again, we have the screen up. Please use the question and answer box for questions as well. For anyone on the last webinar, you might recall that I tried opening the phone lines for questions, and let's just say it didn't go too well. So we will stick to the typed questions. Just a reminder that this presentation will be recorded and posted online for future reference. Last time I tried to send out a survey after, but didn't have good luck, so I will be sending up a follow-up survey just to get your feedback on the webinar and information on other webinars you might be interested in. For those having just general technical difficulties and who might be asking me questions now, I'll do my best to address them during the presentation, but you can also call Colin, our project liaison, and his number is 705-748-6324, extension 281, and he might be able to help you. Okay, so let's get started. Our presenter today is Ken Vay, the Drainage Superintendent from the town of Kingsville. In his presentation, you will learn how Canada's southernmost town is tackling invasive Phragmites in 380 of their municipal drains. You'll also learn how the town is undertaking this work through the most economical means possible. And sorry, one thing before you get started, Ken, for those on Twitter, Colin will also be posting tweets for everyone all along, and the hashtag we're using is hashtag OIPC webinar. Okay, so Ken, take it away.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Thank you to everyone out there joining in, and Kelly, if for whatever reason we have a technical glitch, feel free to stop me, and we'll give you some time to fix it.
Oh, thank you.
No worries. Kelly had said, my name is Ken Vay. I'm the Drainage Superintendent for the town of Kingsville. And she also said that it is the southernmost town in Ontario. And I don't know where you're at, but it's 75 and sunny here. Just kidding, it's actually very cold. So just an idea of what I'm about. I was creative and put this little sign underneath my name. And when I said nobody's perfect, I was getting all cocky and then trying to brag a bit about Kingsville, but then I'm looking down near the bottom and I'm seeing that I spelt your incorrectly. So not even too far into the presentation and I already see a mistake, but we'll continue on. So Municipal Drain, I won't bore you too long with the legalese of it. It's essentially a drainage system to take surface water away to a sufficient outlet. By the time was before the Drainage Act, people have their water people's lands and so on and so on, and it became quite a bit of an issue. So municipal drain is basically it's a legal way to take water away and not have it adversely affect neighboring properties. They're ditches or closed systems. It's really that simple. For the most part, they're ditches in the rural area, but not exclusive to rural agricultural areas. There's some in urban centers as well, but they're mostly closed systems. It's called Municipal Drain is because it's a community project. Like I had spoke before, landowners needed to solve a problem with drainage because it just moved on down the line. People would flood higher properties onto lower properties, and the berms built, and it would just be an ongoing situation. They're governed by laws. They're created, and it's a bylaw within our local municipality. And the Drainage Act is provincial legislation, and it's for over 100 years now. And for the most part, the rules that were created that ago are still valid and still in use today. Like a legal existence, and it's under a municipal bylaw, so council has to be the one to approve a municipal drain. Approved, it becomes municipal infrastructure. That being said, then the tenant, which in this case in Kingsville is me, responsible for repairing and maintaining the municipal drain. So if there's a bad failure, for instance, due to that are sitting in the drain, it's my responsibility to fix it. When there's severe brush throughout the drain, like trees and other scrub, it's my responsibility to remove that, and it's also my responsibility to make sure that the bottom of the drain is free flowing and obstruction needs to be removed. Although I'm responsible, or the town is responsible for maintaining the drain, because it's a communal project, any costs to construct it and or maintain it are assessed to properties with that watershed, and that is determined by an news report. All drains constructed, drains that are constructed are through an engineer's report. So in the engineer's report, there's an assessment schedule, and the parties identified to pay to maintain the drain. And that being said, any maintenance work that's being done, they can expect a cost that's determined by the engineer's report. Most people love to have opinions and want their drain cleaned or maintained, but when it comes to billing, there's usually a reaction that I normally get. And throughout the presentation, you'll see some pictures of captions of people that have come in to the office or out in the field that I've taken and I've used in this presentation. So this is a typical property owner reaction once they receive their bill. It's really happy when we do the maintenance project, but once they get a bill, this is the face that I usually see. The program in 2014, and we continued on in 2015. And I want to add that as well as being the drainage superintendent for the town of Kingsville, I'm a local firefighter, volunteer firefighter in the town as well. And they go kind of hand in hand, both jobs I have. Some municipal drainage project, there are small fires to put out, nothing major, just a minor obstruction that I have to remove. And it's really not too dissimilar than this picture that you're seeing right now. Other times, we have major issues within drains, and it becomes a bit of a more difficult challenge to achieve what we landowners want. And sometimes they become rather large fires to put out. And in all cases, for tools that were given from the Drainage Act or from other provincial legislation make my job a little bit easier. So A fire this big, you wouldn't want to use the hand pump to put out. You'll need a larger hose to put out the fire. Town of Kingsville drainage map. There won't be any quiz after to see, remember all the names of the drains. I'm sure you can't really see them anyhow, but if you're looking at the screen now, basically the top half of the map flows north to Lake St. Clair. Middle portion on the left hand of the map, all that where makes its way to the Cunner River, which then empties out into the Detroit River. The bottom half of the map goes directly to Lake Erie. And today, all of our water makes its way to Lake Erie, but just different routes. Here's concerns that that they bring forward to us that we have to, we take seriously because it affects the bottom line. Leading flow in municipal drains, that's a major issue. It's a broad statement, but flow in a drain is heated in way, shape, or form. There's all sediment within the and it slows down, and sediment drops out of the water, and over time, the nice clean drain bottom that was flowing becomes filled with silt, and that obviously impedes the flow of drains. Outlets, again, when the main drain is not free flowing, tile outlets of the farm they act as they are supposed to and as they're designed to, and that doesn't allow the water to come off of the field in a timely fashion. Down here, the field's mostly flat, so proper tiling and proper drainage in our area, especially, is vital. Springtime and in the fall, when crops are coming off, this past season in the spring was one of our wettest spring on record, and if things aren't functioning as they were originally designed, that obviously put a delay in farming operations. And as well as fall, although we were rather lucky this past fall, we had decent weather and didn't delay any farming operations at all. But in the spring, we had several fields that remained unplanted throughout the year because there just wasn't enough time to get the crops planted. Being said, as the drain isn't functioning, the outlets aren't functioning, there's delays in the operation. The bottom line of a farm's operation is really impacted. Loss of crop yield and the subsequent loss of revenue. People say that that's the type of business that the farmer's in. They're at the mercy of weather. That's possible, but they shouldn't be at the mercy of improper drainage. On a extent, and this isn't really just an agricultural concern. There are also sightline issues at intersections. I had mentioned earlier in the presentation where along the ditch bank of municipal drains, there's potential for tree growth and for shrub and other types of life to grow, and it affects at times sightline issues at intersections, and not only the trees, also the Phrag that grows in the bottom of the drain has grown to heights that are upwards of 12 feet, 50 feet at times, and once that becomes an issue sightline, then the municipality is potentially held responsible for any accidents that may occur. So all of the concerns brought forth by farmers valid, and actually took a picture of the representatives that the farmers sent to make a visit to me, and that really got the importance of the problems that the farmers were encountering when these gentlemen made a visit. So once that happened, I thought it was best to develop a method of Phrag control within the town of Kingsville, and that was probably late 2013 and through the early parts of 2014 that we developed our plan of attack for Phragmites control. And here in the town of Kingsville, doesn't necessarily mean that anywhere else this has to be the way to go, but we're finding in here for the town that it's working. We tweak it every once in a while, but the main focus is always to do the most good with the least amount of harm. When I first started drainage superintendent with the town about 7 years ago, there wasn't a program. There wasn't anything that used in the town that didn't involve hand spraying or spraying, overlaid with a nozzle and that you pulled behind. And although it worked, perceptually, because you're working along the road and the field is right next to most municipal drains, that perceptually it looked like you could cause damage or you're doing something negative to the environment. So that's when we started to look at other options. But at the end of the day, this credo is what we use for our Phrag program. It's do the most good with the least amount of harm. That we have been using and will continue to use for the foreseeable future is called the wet blade technique. It's an application of choice. It's based on and it's basically just a side mount mower that goes into the drain bottom, and it cuts the Phrag. As it cuts the Phrag, it applies a herbicide on cut portion of the Phragmites. And perceptually, it looks like just cutting the Phragmites, and doesn't look like we're spraying because we're not. We're applying herbicide, but it doesn't give that appearance that we're doing any damage to the environment, and we certainly aren't. Our application is 0.5 to 5%, and the product that we use is Vision Max, and we try to use a surfactant with peanut oil, and it's at 1%. There was a wise man who once said, when I asked why we're using, 5% when we can use 1 or 2%, and we could maybe get more distance out of the product, he said to me, Kenny, we're not trying to hurt the plant, we're trying to kill the plant. So we try to use the amount of Phrag herbicide that is recommended by the supplier. Our budget in the town of Kingsville is $60,000 annually. That equates, and it just happened. I wish I could tell you that I was this smart that we plan to make even numbers, but $60,000 budget, and we do about 60 kilometers of municipal drain, so that works out to about $1. All properties cost. We went over that earlier in the presentation, and that includes town roads and county roads and provincial highways. The problem that I'm seeing, and it's not a perfect solution just yet, but the problem that I see is that we do municipal drains on town roads and on county roads, and some on provincial highways, but when the municipal drain stops, that's where my responsibility stops, and drain right adjacent to where I stop or right across the road that isn't a municipal drain. It's classified as just a roadside ditch, and the municipalities or the other, like the county and the company that looks after provincial highways, they don't have the same program that I have right now in the town. And as I'm learning, if you have Phrag, it tends to want to migrate. It tends to want to survive. So although I'm maintaining my municipal drain, the other agencies aren't doing the same, and we're having some issues with that. But that being said, we're working together to try to do everything within our area and not have I guess the patchwork maintenance. We're trying to have something where everyone in our areas is going to control it. And I'm hearing that other municipalities down by Kingsville are looking at starting a Phrag program this coming season. So it's working. It's the word's getting out, and people are really the main reason why that's happening. Here's results from our 2015 Phrag program. Here's a look at the municipal drain that Phrag, and you can see that it's just been cut, and it actually is as high as the cedar trees that you're seeing there, and it was quite a battle to get through. Here you go. Here's a picture of what we're working with, and you can certainly see where the flow is going to be impeded. Look like after, and as you see, a lot of that the growth, the dead stuff, as we call it, lays in there, and we had some issues at the first year that was cut. I believe that was in the middle part of July of 2014, and over the course of time, it begins to break down. It begins to rot. But we did have a couple of rain events where the wash down the Phrag, and we had some blockages at the inlets of culverts. But out of the 60 kilometers of drain that we did, I would suspect we had maybe 3 issues that we had to deal with. So any issues is potentially a serious issue, but I believe that it's basically, the way I perceived it, was collateral damage that we have to deal with when the time comes. And in 2014, we had the same program in 2015, and as of yet, I have not had any rain events cause to block inlets of culverts. So the first year we had 3 issues. Second year, 2015, we haven't had any issues as of yet, and I don't foresee a problem at all. A picture of what we're looking at and what we're dealing with, and I think you can see part of that picture in the top left. It had started to rain, and in light rain, it's recommended, and we did. We continued cutting, but once the rain became a little bit more heavy, we stopped, because although the wet blade technique applies the herbicide right directly under the cut plant, we didn't want to take a chance and essentially waste products. So we work in little rains, but in substantial rain events we stop. I mentioned earlier about how all of the maintenance projects are built to landowners. That happens down. The collectors that we hire are paid immediately, and that's $60,000 that's paid out right away. And her finance is wanting her money right away. So we have to work with her, getting people invoiced. I heard a picture of fella after our Phrag program. This is the farmers look like. Taken thousands of pictures, but in picture, this is basically what all our farmers were looking at. Extremely happy with our Phrag program. Happy that we're being proactive, and this is the face of most farmers down in Kingsville with our Phrag program. Here's our recovery of cost, and we lay out $60,000 right away, and our director of finance basically is wanting her money right away. So that's when we start invoicing the people. There's a lot of famous-looking people down here in Kingsville. It's just probably because it's the southernmost part of Ontario and Canada, so we have a lot of famous people down here. That does look like Tom Cruise, but it's not. So again, we use our engineer's report, our most recent engineer's report, to determine cost assessment. When a drain's created, an assessment schedule is created, and in that assessment schedule is the cost to each property within that drainage area. We send notices to all the affected properties. They usually give me that look. If you remember that first picture, when below people, they're happy, and it goes from that happy little farmer guy to the fellow here. This he's taken at our counter, coming in to pay one of his bills. And over time, when we send out invoices, phone calls and visits come in actually larger than normal working days. At the end of a billing cycle, this actually, you can't see me, but I'm the guy in the back seat, so if you can visualize the voice talking to you right now, that's me after a billing period, because when work gets done, but when the bills go out and they have to pay, they're usually not happy, and yeah. So basically like this, and I come back to work the next day, all happy. We can do our Phrag program in 2016. That's our plan, and I don't see how it's going to change beyond 2016, because we seem to be moving in the direction that anticipated. Airbus growth is anticipated, and this is a rudimentary way that we decided that we are making progress. We took the same length of drain, let's say for make it easier, a kilometer of drain. In 2018, which was our first year of the program, it took an hour to get that stretch of drain a kilometer long. That stretch of drain in 2015, a kilometer long, took about 40 to 50 minutes. So that said, less growth occurred that year. So rudimentary, and that's as basic as it gets, but that's how we determined, and we did this all over the municipality, that we determined that we are moving in the right direction. And some drains, maybe we only gained 5 minutes. Some, maybe 20, but on average, 10 to 15 minutes we pick up for that to drain. So that's how we determine we're moving in the right direction. That's why we're going to continue 2016 as well. There was something, I believe it was it was in the town of Leamington, which is door to Kingsville. At the question and answer period at the end of the talk, there was one of the things that stuck with me was that we need to educate the public of the seriousness of this problem. As farmers know, I know that they know that there's an issue, but I think that we have to get the word out to others that aren't immediately affected, to let them know that there's an issue. And I also am reading this where I'm looking at educating the public of the seriousness of the problem. I think that we also need to continue the work that Kelly's doing, educating the government of the serious problem. And I know that we're moving in the right direction, and I just think that we need to continue to spread the word just how this problem is becoming a serious matter. And it really, you know, if it affects the farmer, and it affects how they get their crops, and it affects how the food gets, you know, to the stores, and in essence, it really does affect everyone. And I really don't see how, you know, doing nothing is the only option we don't have. So whatever program anyone comes up with is the better solution than doing nothing. So we need to continue to, you know, at least try, or at least you know, push government to give us the proper tools to continue a program. You know, it doesn't have to be like what Kingsville's doing, but everyone knows their municipality, and they'll know what works there. They'll know what the people want. So you know, buy something up for your municipality. That's what we did here, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So unless we do something, the Phrag problem is going to continue to grow. And like, you know, when you're trying to tackle something on your not really being, you know, forced to. I did that picture earlier of a couple farmers coming in to see me, but basically we're at the curve here in Kingsville. We're not trying to play catch up, and by being proactive, we're going to see the Phrag problem shrink. And like I said earlier, just on that rudimentary measuring stick that we did with that kilometer of drain that took an hour in 2014 is now taking 45 to 50 minutes, seeing it shrink now. And my hope is that the problem will have a shrinkage problem, just like George Costanza had in the Seinfeld episode when he was in that cold pool. So, yeah, again, a fine theme I'm sure you're seeing, but I joke around with different pictures, but at the end of the day, when it rains, I don't want to be nervous or worried. I want to be like I refrain from Shawshank Redemption. When it rains, I want to go out and enjoy it and not have to worry that farmers are going to flood and that their crops are going to be lost. So that program's going to work, and I want to be just like this. This is my presentation, and Kelly, if there's any questions out there, I'll do my best to answer.
Yeah, for sure. That was great, Ken. Such a good presentation, and I love all your funny memes. Makes it much more enjoyable. Yeah, so, okay, so, yeah, let's the questions start rolling. Like I mentioned, please use the question and answer box. So feel free to just type them in whenever, and I'll just kind of go through the top to the bottom. There might be a range of questions here. So the first question that I have is, do you have to be licensed to use the herbicide? And you do, but you could probably talk maybe a little bit about like using for the application.
I'll try to answer it. I probably won't have the exact terminology right, but our contractors that perform Phrag maintenance are licensed applicators. I know one just came back from renewing his license. I think it was last week. So they certainly have to be licensed in order to apply herbicide on our Phrag.
muted myself there. Yeah, so, and just kind of add to that, yeah, you do have to be licensed to apply, and then outside of a drain or if you're looking to apply an herbicide for Phragmites in another environment, you have to have a permit for that, whether it be a letter of opinion through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry or a permit through the Ministry of Environment as well. So I actually have quite a number of other questions coming through as well, so we do have a good chunk of time here. So the next question is, what proportion of the 60 kilometers of drains was actually covered in Phragmites?
Well, that's a good question. We have, I think I mentioned, we have well over 300 drains in our area. So we picked the drains that had the most severe Phragmites problem. So out of, okay, we'll break it down into a kilometer. I would say that 70% of the drains that we're performing maintenance in, 70% of that drain had a severe Phrag problem. And
so 70% of kind of section of drain.
That's right, yep.
Okay. That answers that question. So the next question is, what work, if any, is done to remove the cut Phragmites after the mowing? So you did touch on this a little bit, but are those cuttings not a concern for continued drain blockage? So yes, you did touch on this a little bit, but maybe I was even going to ask if that was going to become a little bit more something you guys might think about in the future of removing that cut Phragmites.
Yeah, you touched on that. In 2014, when we had our initial work, there were well-established Phrag that we were dealing with that was, rather mature and thick. And when we cut it, it didn't get cut in the small pieces that we had hoped in. It created 3 blockages, and at the time, that wasn't bad. Let's see how 2015 does. So 2015 is mature Phrag. So when we cut, them actually cut up the into smaller pieces and more manageable. And we didn't have any blockages at all, and it looks like Mother Nature is taking over and break down the plant over time. So right now, it doesn't appear that we're going to be looking at removing any of the cut Phrag. So if it were to become more of an issue with potential blockages down the way, that we'd look into it. But right now, we're doing okay.
Okay, interesting. So I mean, if it does become a serious concern, maybe you'll think about trying to remove some of those cuts. But for right now, it's not too big of a concern.
No, not at all.
Okay. So the next question is, how did you determine where to start and how to prioritize? I guess basically, where does one begin when it comes to something like this?
That's a How do you differentiate, meaning that it's important all over the town, but how can you say that this area is more important than another? Basically, at the end of the day, I guess you have to justify by saying, what drains are working, what drains are flowing, and you know what farms are being negatively impacted by the lack of proper drainage. So that's how we went about it. We we toured, like I said, we probably started this 6-8 months in advance before we actually put a machine into the ditch, determining where to start. And I guess really we knew, or I knew, going over the years, I knew which drains were not working, and once it became serious, we decided to put a plan together. You just know that what areas need to be maintained first, and go and do it. And that way you can justify to people who think their area is more important than that person. You can take them out there and you can show them stuff. And basically it was just where the water wasn't flowing in a way that we thought it should, and that's basically how we started.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, that's very interesting. And I'll just put a little plug in for the council itself. That's an interesting question because we are actually in the process for everyone on the computer, and you can as well, of finishing a Phragmites prioritization tool, which we're hoping to have finished by the end of March, and that will help municipal staff, but also land managers help to prioritize Phragmites sites so they can utilize and create, utilize the resources and use them the most efficiently. So just want to add to that, but we won't go on about that quite yet. Okay, so the next question I have is an interesting one. It's actually related to the Act, or the Invasive Species Act. So this person is asking if you can, do you see any increased support for Phragmites control from the government now that the Act has been passed?
I can only speak locally, Kelly. Our council here in Kingsville has been supportive throughout this whole process. So they're still on board. They're hearing the positive feedback, and from our council, we have another committee that was mandated from our council. It's called the Drainage Advisory Committee, and on that committee there are 3 farmers that are selected. There's applications that are put in, and throughout all the applications, 3 farmers are selected, and we have 2 members of council. So we meet, I think, 4 times a year, and we want to go over drainage concerns and what we think we're doing right, what we think we're doing wrong. And our committee has formed a letter to council, the praises of our Phrag program, and I believe the council's in the process of sending that up the ladder to provincial government, saying what we're in Kingsville is working. So I can speak locally that our council is extremely happy with our progress, and I know that they're spreading the word up the chain of command.
Right, and definitely from other presentations that I've attended when it comes to the municipality is getting the council on board, so that is really good news to hear that they're supportive and they want to continue to support it as well. I have a few number of other questions. So the next one isn't something that I was even thinking of, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but do you only spray when there is no flow in the drains?
Yeah, the problem that I'm encountering is that I think the question was, how do I select the drains to start with? A lot of times that we do a drain, there's actually standing water in the drain, but I have to remember the technique that we use is called wet blade, so there actually isn't any spray, and the contact is made with the plant itself. From the plant, it's absorbed on the plant system into the root system into the rhizome. So for the most part, the collateral damage in standing water is absolutely minimal. So we, like I said earlier, we don't spray in the rain. We don't have any, do anything in high flow. But in standing water, we do the blading because of the lessened impact, because it goes directly onto the plant.
Okay, right. Yes, that is true, and definitely the wet blade is a little bit of a newer technique, and you're finding it probably the best method that you guys are currently using, and will continue to use that method.
Because for doing a municipal drain, we're able to get alongside of it because we're either doing it from the road or from the field side, so we can actually have a machine there, so there's the control, that we can do a drain is there for, so we don't have to have all this other dusting techniques, right? So we just apply it right from beside the drain.
Great. Okay, well, I have a lot. You have a lot of questions, and we still have about 15 minutes, so this is good. So the next question I have is, they're hoping that you could expand a little on the partnership or discussions that you've had with the Ministry of Transportation in regards to their work and their work along provincial highways.
Sure. I guess the discussions I have with that group is that they're happy that we're maintaining the drain and that they're happy to pay the bill. But as of now, that the discussion with that agency, as opposed to with Essex County Highways, Essex County Highways seem to be starting a program themselves, based on, I guess, the education and based on what they're seeing, how our program's working. The industry is happy with the bill and happy that we're doing municipal drain work that has to, but haven't heard or seen any evidence that they're willing to do anything on their own just yet.
I can add to that a little in regards to that question. Like we work closely, or try to work closely with MTO as well, and they do some Phragmites management on some provincial highways, especially in southwestern Ontario. We have actually I think Steve Ford, who does your work, who owns Greenstream Vegetation and Lawn Management, he's been contracted out at times to help the MTO with their Phrag control program. It's just not province-wide yet, but they are supportive of Phragmites initiatives and are definitely jumping on board there as well. Okay, so the next question is there a projected time frame that you expect to, this is a challenging one, eradicate Phragmites?
Wow. I guess that's our goal, but I suspect that our vision is to control it. So eradicate it, I don't know. I think what our immediate goal is that within 3 to 5 years that we'll have our Phrag within our drainage system controlled. It would be great to actually have it eradicated and not have to ever come back again. But I don't see that as something happening in the near future. But to have it controlled, where we can have a $60,000 budget and maybe do 100 kilometers of drain, that'd be great. We can get more bang for our buck because we're going through our drains a lot quicker because there's less of a problem. But 5 years to have our Phrag problem controlled.
Okay. Yeah, and if I can just add to that a little too, just working with Janice Gilbert of the Phragmites Working Group, who's dealt with Phragmites for a number of years, eradication is kind of one of those things where I would never say that it will be eradicated, but definitely down to the point where it's manageable and you'll have to continue to monitor for touch-ups and things like that for many years to come, I think.
I agree.
Okay. So this is an interesting question, and we're hearing more and more kind of about this as well. The next question is, does the municipality or the town of Kingsville have any rules around transporting Phragmites at all?
That's a good question. No, I don't believe we have any bylaws or rules prohibiting transportation of Phrag. No, I don't think that we do.
Okay. Definitely something that's becoming more prevalent, and we're getting asked a lot. And I think we'll start to see that perhaps as municipalities start to, and it potentially could happen with the Invasive Species Act as well, that municipalities might take those types of things into their own hands as well. Okay, so this next question, and there was a reminder, I was going to ask about timing as well. The question is, if you're leaving the stalks in the drains, when do you guys cut? Do you cut prior to seed set?
I've been cutting the only 2 years that we've done it. We have been cutting probably around the middle to late part of July into August, and we're looking potentially at moving it to September. Just trying different things. We probably will do a different section, and maybe do a little section in September just to see if timing is going to either affect positively or negatively on our whole method. So yeah, I believe September is probably, from what I'm reading, the way to go. So we might move our program a little bit later this year.
Okay, and actually, I don't want to take up the here, but another plug for us as well, and it's very relevant to this topic, is that we're developing a Phragmites Best Management Practices document specifically for road managers and somewhat municipal drain managers as well. So there'll be some, this document's being reviewed by Janice Gilbert and other professionals as well, and you should probably have a look at it as well, Ken. But we are including extensive information about timing in that as well. Yeah, I think like August, I think seed set is August, so I think August is, what would make you move into September?
Because this is new. I think we've been relatively successful doing it in July and into August, but this is kind of almost like a pilot project. So in order to pick a smaller section and maybe do it later in the year, just to see. So really only just curiosity so far, Kelly, to try to just to make sure that we're doing it right. So maybe we'll just do a small section later in the year just to see if whether what we're doing is wrong, or maybe confirming whether what we're doing is right. So basically, that's the only reason why we're going to move a small section later in the year.
Okay, but definitely I'll send you that BMP. I can't remember all the information we have right now about timing, but it'd be interesting to read that again. So, okay, so I think I have the same question here again about timing and spraying with the herbicide. Okay, the next question I have is the estimated cost. So as you mentioned before, I think you said $60,000 for 60 kilometers, which is $1,000 per kilometer. Based on the average percentage of drainage in most communities, is this a feasible approach for Phragmites management? I'm not sure if I quite understand that question, but do you see what they're asking there, Ken?
I guess you're asking whether this is a cost-effective way. Is that what I'm
right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Again, I believe what we're doing is cost-effective. It works. Yeah, I can really sell my cost-effectiveness to it. But I go back to what I said before, that doing thing is really our only option that we don't have. So something else were to come up that would prove to me that it can be a more cost-effective way, I can sell to council, and it's not really much of a sell that this is the most cost-effective way that we know of so far.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Next question I have is, are tracking the rate, locations, and distribution of regrowth, perhaps to target future cutting plans? So if you're seeing regrowth, are you tracking that and following up with those areas, and how would you be tracking that regrowth?
That's a good question. There's what found so far in the 2 years that there is new growth, but the new growth is like I said, rudimentary, but it seems to work. That kilometer stretch that took us an hour the first year took us 45 minutes this year. and we'll see what it takes us next year. So if we have to target it maybe, twice a year, a section twice a year in order to get, better handle on it, we will. But of the 2 years that we saw so far, it looks like we're moving in the right direction just based on things. So 20% kill every year is probably not too far out of the realm of what we're hoping for. So we have some growth, and in 2016 we'll see if there's more or less or the same. So a lot of pictures. Our contractor takes a lot of video. So there's to see that we're monitoring it really extensively and scientifically. We're not, but just how long it took us to year 2. And we'll see how long it takes us to a second from year 2 to year 3. So that's how we're monitoring.
Okay, and I guess into that, the next question is, so roughly is 1,000, or maybe it was the question before, $1,000 per kilometer now, but do you think, because you're not seeing the regrowth, that's going to decline? So perhaps, I've seen this in other Phragmites control programs too, not municipal drains, but just general control, they're seeing the cost decline. So perhaps it'll come down this year?
Yeah, that's the plan. I think when I was answering the question about the eradication, that I don't ever get it eradicated, but the budget probably will remain the same. And maybe our hopes is that we do 100 kilometers with that $6,000 budget, and I see that as a real possibility that the cost per kilometer or per meter will go down. So 60,000 we'll get more bang for our buck with 60,000, I'm thinking.
Okay, good to know. So the next question I have, so I thought of this as well. So we have a clean equipment protocol. How you guys put or use that kind of protocol when you're doing control? If you're, I guess you're a contractor, so do you get them to make sure that they're cleaning their equipment so you're not spreading Phragmites anywhere?
Yeah, on the machines that they have a water tank that they spray down the head of the mowing head and their tires and any other areas of the machine where seed heads could travel. That's being used. So yeah, we try to put our money where our mouth is. I mean, we try not to spread our seeds, so their contractors are pretty diligent in washing their machines off on site out at the drain before moving.
Oh, interesting. I'll try to squeeze in more kind of related questions. So we only have about 2 minutes left. Just curiosity, this person's asking, what is, it can quickly answer, what is the difference between doing regular ditch maintenance versus the wet blade? So if it's 1,000 kilometers for the wet blade, what's the cost per kilometer for regular ditch maintenance?
It's going to be probably, it depends on the type of drain, obviously. If the drain has a lot of brush and has a lot of material to get out, I can see upwards of being charged anywhere between $3 and $5 a meter for doing maintenance there. So we're looking at 3 times as much just doing regular maintenance. And by doing regular maintenance, you're really solving the Phrag problem. You're just digging out the root, and it comes back with a vengeance within that year. So our Phrag maintenance program is about $1 a meter, and our regular maintenance can range, depending on the type of drain it is, from $2 to $5 a meter.
Okay. So the last question, I'll try to squeeze this in, if you can answer it quickly. Roughly, through your engineer figuring out, what to charge and things like that, do you know roughly what it is, like, cost per property average?
Oh, and per year, there's many people on, $50 to $100 a year.
Okay.
For a farm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope I got most of the questions. I'm sorry if I did miss a few near the end there, but it is 1 o'clock now, and Ken's been a real sport to answering all these questions. We had quite a few more this week than last week, or 2 weeks ago. So thank you so much. And like I said, we're going to send out a survey after, and for those that we really had some pressing questions that didn't get answered, you can email me, and I'll pass them along to Ken. So my email is kellie@oninvasive.ca, and I'll include that in the survey as well. But thank you again so much, Ken, for taking the time, and I thought that went really well, so thank you.
Awesome, Kelly. It was good. It was painless. I thought it was going to get really skewered, but it was neat. No worries.
Yeah, it was. It was great. Okay, well, thank you, Ken, and thank you to all the participants, and stay tuned for information about our next webinar. Have a great day.